All right, Shalom. Shut the feed real quick. All right, Shalom. All right, we good to go. All right, Shalom. Before I get started, I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who taught me this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. Back at you with another news and prophecy. This could be the end of all of us. All right, I want to get into that. A lot of end time, topics coming up. All right, and people are noticing. Okay. Hey, but again, we have to remain occupied in prophecy and be on the ready. All right. Any day, all of this shit can change right before our eyes, man. All right. This is what we waiting on. All right. Real quick. All right. This is Luke 12:35. Be in readiness, right? It's the spirit. All right. That's the spirit that's going out right now to remain ready. All right. Be ready for the Lord's coming. Okay. Luke 12:35. Let your loins be girded about and your lights burning, and ye yourselves like unto men that wait for their Lord when he will return from the wedding, that when he cometh and knocketh, they may open unto him immediately. Blessed are those servants whom the Lord, when he cometh, shall find watching. Verily I say unto you, that he should gird himself and make them to sit down to meat, and will come forth and serve them. And if he shall come in the second watch, or come in the third watch, and find them also, blessed are those servants. And this know that if the good man of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and would not suffer his house to be broken through. All right. Because if you knew that the thief was coming at that certain time, you would be on your watch. All right. You would be on the guard. All right. Verse 40. Be ye therefore ready also, for the Son of Man cometh in an hour when you think not. All right. And we see that because, like it tells us in 2 Peter 3rd chapter, all right, that these prophecies, these promises, they slack not a moment, man. All right. The way things are moving, all right, these things that are coming to pass, the escalation of this war with Iran and America, Israel, Russia and China, North Korea, all these nations getting involved. All right. The gathering of the troops. Okay. This thing's coming fast. All right. We're approaching the Passover tomorrow, whatnot. All right. A lot can happen between now and then, as I've been saying, man. All right. Shit is not looking good. Right. Luke 12:40. Be ye therefore already also, for the Son of Man cometh in an hour when you think not. All right. Let me read that in the NLT. All right. I got the double format. I had to take that from the apostle, All right. NLT on the right here. Same verses. Luke 12:35. Be dressed for your service and keep your lamps burning. All right. Keep the fire. As though you were waiting for your master to return from the wedding feast, then you will be ready to open the door and let him in the moment he arrives and knocks. All right. Just like in it's just written those wise virgins. Okay, they made themselves ready. Okay. It says, verse 37, the servants who are ready and waiting for his return will be rewarded. Right? I tell you the truth, he himself will seat them, put on an apron and serve them as they sit and eat. He may come in the middle of the night or just before dawn, but whenever he comes, he will reward the servants who are ready. All right, those that are ready, occupied in prophecy, man, watching. Okay. Understand this, verse 39 NLT. Understand this: if a homeowner knew exactly when a burglar was coming, he would not permit his house to be broken into. Exactly. You also must be ready all the time, for the Son of Man will come when least expected. All right, let's get into it. All right, this is from 16 hours ago. Waters, Trump's final warning. All right, let's play through this a little bit here.
Fox News alert, commandos from the most advanced special ops teams in the world have just arrived in theater. The Army Rangers and Navy SEALs, and they're joining the 3,500 sailors and Marines that have just taken position in the Middle East on the USS Tripoli. The 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit is also on board, and a ship full of transport and strike fighter aircraft ready to be brought into the action. Alongside of them, the most elite paratrooper unit on Earth, the 82nd Airborne Division, who are ready to hit the silk as the president issues a final warning. Quote, if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island. Clock's ticking for the mullahs to make a deal, or lights out. The terms are clear. No nukes.
All right, you heard what he said, right? So time is running out. All right. Let me let this catch up a little bit. Hold on. 1 second.
No uranium.
These people are lunatics. They are insane. They are religious zealots who can never be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon because they have an apocalyptic vision of the future.
The ball's in the mullah's court. Hand over the yellow cake or we'll take it. The White House is weighing a military operation to physically extract the 1,000 pounds of uranium that Iran has buried in an underground lair. The mission's high risk, high reward. It would require U.S. Special Forces to fly to 2 nuclear sites under enemy fire, seize it, secure the perimeter, then send an extraction team of engineers deep down to prep the tunnels, clear the booby traps, followed by a special ops unit responsible for removing around 40 canisters of uranium, file them into caskets, load them onto trucks, and drive them to an airstrip to be flown home. An operation like this, we're told, could be done in under a week, but anything could happen. We've removed nuclear programs like this before, after the Soviet Union fell, but never under combat conditions. A key to success would be maintaining complete air supremacy. Our F-18 Super Hornets continue to launch from the USS Lincoln, neutralizing targets day and night. Our stealth supercruiser F-22 Raptors have full control of the skies, and so do our B-52s, doing what they do. Iranian air defense is so completely destroyed, we're refueling right over their capital. The USS Lincoln also launching Hawkeyes, nicknamed the Eyes in the Skies. They're transmitting real-time surveillance data back to CENTCOM. This data is then sent to our fleet of Blackhawks to transport troops and bring in logistical support. The commander-in-chief says he prefers peace, but he's keeping his options open.
I do see a deal in Iran, yeah.
Mr. President,
could be soon.
Are you considering still putting boots on the ground, and would you do that without going to Congress?
I just have lots of alternatives.
The president's been telling associates that he wants to keep a tight time frame, so any ground operations expected to be swift and decisive. The White House is still confident they're on schedule.
He laid out that 4 to 6 week timetable for this conflict, and we're now within week 5. So how do you square kind of those?
And they said this, they put it out in these articles that, hey, they're prepared for the long war. This war is going to be weeks, months. All right, ended no time soon.
Well, 4 to 6 weeks estimated timeline. Again, you just said we're on day 30 of the operation. I think we should all be very proud of our armed forces for what they have done over the past 30 days. The mission will continue until the objectives are achieved, and that 4 to 6 week timeline does remain right now.
To speed things up, we could even see the introduction of our newest secret weapon, the discombobulator.
In Venezuela, the U.S. military used a weapon that, as best I can tell, had never been used before and hasn't really been explained too thoroughly, at least not in the popular media, that made everybody, made all.
Yo, they got a weapon called the discombobulator. All right, they say it could fry regimes' brains, right? They got weapons that could fry brains, bro. Right? Let me just get that real quick. Because remember, hey, the sword was his blessing. All right. Psalm 17 and verse 13. And it reads, Arise, O Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. All right. That weapon was his blessing, man. All right. He said they pulled out some shit that wasn't even seen, never seen before. All right. So imagine what they're going to unleash in these times now, you know, that they have that nobody's ever heard of or seen, right?
Maduro's guards like vomit, or some sort of, high-tech weapon, microwave gun. The president has something in mind that maybe we've never seen used by any government, any military in the history of warfare.
Yeah, they got all that shit. Call of Duty type shit, man. All right. Brain fryers, laser guns. All right. Heart attack guns. Okay. He can shoot beams from the heavens. All right. That's what they had the DO weapon. All right. For those that remember what happened in Hawaii. All right. In California. All right. A couple years ago. All right. Those wildfires. This man has it all, man.
To hit the Iranians with if they don't come to the table and surrender.
Just because we can microwave their brains and bellies doesn't mean it's going to be a cakewalk. These are extremely, extremely dangerous raids the president's considering conducting. We expect casualties. And the regime hasn't fully collapsed. They aren't fully disarmed yet. They still have thousands of drones and hundreds of missiles. In the past days, the Iranians hit an American military base in Saudi Arabia, striking an E-3 Sentry. It's like a $500 million command and control center with wings. But we still have 5 or 6 more in the region. Drones also hit Arab ports, refineries, and aluminum facilities. And this just in, a British tanker was just clipped off the coast of Dubai. And now the Houthis are getting off the couch, launching missiles at Israel. Zelensky, though, just papered a deal to start selling the Middle East low-cost anti-drone interceptors, which will be a huge help. The question is the Republican Guard, which has consolidated control over the country, are they sane? Would they launch ballistic missiles at their own nuclear sites if American commandos choppered in? Same thing with Kharg Island. Would they blow up their only economic lifeline just to stop America from seizing it? Trump's been teasing the Iranians, saying, maybe we take Kharg Island, maybe we don't. A former Pentagon official says taking Iran's primary oil faucet would be like, quote, taking a chess piece off Iran's board and putting another bargaining chip in your pocket. Trump's even saying on top of the uranium.
Yeah, you clearly see that these devils are proud, man. All right, in their own delusions. Okay, they really think, again, that this is all going to go in their favor. You know,
we might even take their oil. The Iranians heard that and let some ships sail through the strait.
When I talked about 4 days ago, a present, I said they gave me a present, but I didn't think I was at liberty to say what it was. What it was 8 + 2. It's 10 massive boatloads of oil. And today they gave us another present. They gave us 20 boatloads of oil. That starts being shipped tomorrow.
Meanwhile, U.S. Central Command hasn't let its foot off the gas. We continue our bombing campaign against the Iranian Navy, trying to hold the strait hostage. And Trump's been joking about naming the strait after himself.
They are making threats about controlling the Hormuz Straits in perpetuity, creating a tolling system and the like. That's not going to be allowed to happen. And the president has no.
Yeah, I was thinking about that scripture too, the water out. All right. Psalms 10 and 5. GMS in his likeness. 6399. Shalom. Psalms 10 and 5. His ways are always grievous. Thy judgments are far above out of his sight. As for all of his enemies, he puffeth at him, right? That's what he does. Okay, because he has the power. All right. You know, they got the military, the weaponry, all right, the so-called advancement in technology, right? So they feel as if they're unstoppable, you know. Let me add some more in that same verse or that same chapter, Psalms 10 and 6, just to make the point. All right, Psalms 10 and 6. He have said in his heart, I should not be moved, for I should never be in adversity. See that? NLT, they think nothing bad will ever happen to us. We will be free of trouble forever. That's the mindset of Esau, man. His pride. Okay? His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. And he's still lying to the people about this war. First, they won the war. All right. Now they asking for help. Now they don't need the help. Right? They're not going to have boots on the ground. Now they got boots on the ground. They're not going to send troops. Now they're sending troops. All right? He's a lie, man. Their mouths are full of cursing, lies, and threats. Right? This is what you've been hearing this whole video. That's why it's called, it's entitled Trump's Final Warning. All right? They're making these threats to Iran, but they're not going to bend. Okay? They got the Hormuz locked down, man. This shit's about to go. All right? As we're going to get more into here. Okay? Psalms 10 and 7, their mouths are full of cursing. It's NLT on the right. Psalms 10 and 7, their mouths are full of cursing, lies, and threats. Trouble and evil are on the tips of their tongues. Right?
Navy trying to hold the Strait hostage. And Trump's been joking about naming the Strait after himself.
They are making threats about controlling the Hormuz Straits in perpetuity, creating a tolling system and the like. That's not going to be allowed to happen. And the president has a number of options available to him if he so chooses.
General Bessent says tick-tock.
Over time, the U.S. is going to retake control of the straits, and there will be freedom of navigation, whether it is through U.S. escorts or a multinational escort.
The mullahs know the terms. They can't have the Strait. They can't enrich uranium. And the missiles have got to go.
I hear a lot of talk about we don't know what the clear objectives are. Here they are. You should write them down. Number one, the destruction of their Air Force. Number two, the destruction of their Navy. Number three, the severe diminishing of their missile launching capability. And number four, the destruction of their factories so they can't make more missiles and more drones to threaten us in the future.
Hey, shit, we just read the scripture. Right? Right on point. NLT. Psalms 10 and 7, their mouths are full of cursing, lies, and threats. Trouble and evil are on the tips of their tongues. Hey, everything he's saying here. All right, he's laying the list out. This is what they're gonna do if they don't meet Trump's demands over the Strait of Hormuz. How you think this shit gonna go? Right?
All of this so that they can never hide behind it to acquire a nuclear weapon. That was our objective from the beginning. That remains our objective now. We are on pace and, in fact, ahead of schedule on some of those things, and we are going to achieve those things in a number of weeks, not in a number of months.
It's officially been 1 month since the beginning of Operation Epic Fury, and we've hit over 11,000 targets, destroyed 150 of their ships. They have almost no air force, almost no air defenses. Regime leadership's been killed. There's no command and control. Everyone's hiding underground and won't use a cell phone. With that said, the president says we still have over 3,000 military targets left on our hit list. The rump state's still launching missiles and drones and screwing around in the Strait and threatening to activate the Houthis. Although the negotiations, the president says, are going well. A lightning-fast ground operation on Karg or the Strait and maybe even their nuke sites could be the knockout blow that the United States has been wargaming for.
For many years, we've considered options along the southern coast of Iran, seizing islands, seizing small bases. You're not going to stay. But some of those islands you could seize and hold. If you seize Karg Island, you really can shut down the Iranian oil economy completely. And the beauty of seizing it is you're not destroying it. These are not back of the envelope calculations. These are things we've been working on for many years. And I think we're right to threaten the entire littoral, to hold all these options out there.
The next couple of weeks could be the most dangerous and decisive of the war. We pray it goes as well as the first month's gone. And all we can do is keep the troops in our heart and trust the commander-in-chief makes the right decisions with accuracy and wisdom.
He got a placemat and he turned it on its back, and then he took a Sharpie and he drew a perfect map of the Mideast.
Man, I'm sorry. That guy RFK is through. It's hard to listen to that guy. Goodness gracious, man.
And then he put the troop strength of every country on every border on that map. And it just, it challenged a lot of the assumptions that I had been told about him. He has this extraordinary depth of knowledge about what's happening in each one of the agencies. And then he has an instinct for making good choices.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the five.
Yeah. So that was it on that. Now, I want to play this real fast. This wasn't on the list, but this caught my eye. Let me just play a few minutes of that, and then we'll go on to the point. All right. How U.S. is burning nearly $890 million every single day. All right. Got to hear that.
$10,300 every single second. That's not the GDP of a small country. That's not a Wall Street bonus. That's how fast American taxpayers are bleeding money in the U.S. war on Iran.
And like I said, the whore is going to collapse behind this war. Okay? They can't afford it. All right? $10,300 per second. All right? They said $1 billion a day. All right?
Every second that you're watching this, you're losing over $10,000. This war has gone on for 31 days. The cost per second is $10,300. That makes the cost per hour $37 million. And the cost per day, a whopping $890 million. So far, the United States has spent over $27 billion. $27 billion. So where is all of this money going? The biggest item is missiles and munitions. From Tomahawk cruise missiles to precision bombs, they cost $320 million a day. So Americans, every time you watch $1 million firework go off over the Persian Gulf, remember, you paid for it. Next is air operations. Fighter jets screaming off carrier decks, bomber runs, aerial refueling missions at 30,000 feet, reconnaissance, all of it running round the clock. That costs around $245 million a day. And then there's the Navy, carrier strike groups, destroyers, submarines. These aren't cheap to park in the Arabian Sea. So those account for $155 million a day. Missile defense is costly too, from the THAAD to the Patriot batteries and the Aegis system. That costs $95 million a day. Intelligence and cyber operations cost around $45 million. I'm talking about satellites, surveillance drones, and digital warfare. And finally, the people actually doing all of this, from troops, supply chains to logistics, they cost around $30 million a day. That's your daily breakdown. $890 million every single day. And that's just the operational cost.
There you go. Right? The whole breakdown. All right? Can America afford that? Hell no, man. This is how you know it's all designed to fail, right? Which we're going to come back to this in a second. So all the stuff that we just heard from these two clips is going to play into this, all right? This came out zerohedge.com. This came out on the 30th yesterday. It says global demand destruction. Subsidies, empty gas stations, rationing, flight cancellations, export limits, price controls. All right, this is about to collapse this thing, man. Okay? How can you not see that, right? The point here. Let's go back to this. This is from thehill.com. It says why tens of millions of Americans now believe the end is near, right? The writing's on the wall. Everybody sees it, man. Okay? How could you not think that? Tens of millions of Americans now believe the end is near, right? Make it a little bigger here. All right, it says America used to reserve doomsday talk for the guys who stored beans in their backyard and argued about the book of Revelation on AM radio. Now, according to a recent paper in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 1/3 of the country quietly suspects that the end will arrive before they get a chance to draw down their 401k plans. All right, it's spiritual. You know, that 1/3. Okay. The hopeful elect. Those that have the eyesight to see this thing, man. All right. Those that are dwelling with the light can see that this thing is over with, man. All right. And what did we title it? This could be the end of us all. All right. It's the spirit. Right. 1 Peter 4:7. And it reads, but the end of all things is at hand. But the end of all things is at hand. Be ye therefore sober and watch unto prayer. All right. Hey, it's clear. The end of all things is at hand. All right. This is why millions of Americans, all right, now believe the end is near. All right. And another contributor to that is the prophecies, man, the prophets. All right. The understanding of the Bible going out, man. Okay. Have these people not heard the judgment that coming forth from the mouth of the prophets? You know, matter of fact, let me get that. Right. We'll come back to that. This is Psalm 37. All right. The mouth of the righteous. All right. What is it? Psalm 37. Bear with me. All right. Psalm 37 and 30. Right. Psalm 37 and 30. The mouth of the righteous. Let me pull it up. Psalm 37 and 30. The mouth of the righteous speaketh wisdom, and his tongue talketh of judgment. All right. Hey, the word is out there, man. Okay. Again, 1 Peter 4:7. But the end of all things is at hand. Be ye therefore sober and watch unto prayer, man. All right. NLT. The end of the world is coming soon. Therefore, be earnest and disciplined in your prayers. All right. We in the time, Lord willing, man. This is the last Passover on this side, man. All right. The scriptures talk about the haste in the day, right? Let me get that too. All right. 2 Peter chapter 3. Right. Bear with me. Let me get there. All right. 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 9. I'll read to the point. And it reads, the Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. But the day of the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. Nuclear war, World War III. Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness? The point, verse 12, looking for and hasting unto the coming of the day of power. All right, the hopeful elect. Okay, that 1/3 will be looking for. We're looking for this. We're looking forward to this bad news, right? Looking for and hasting unto the coming of the day of power, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. All right, I gotta pull that up. What does it mean to haste? The hasting, looking for and hasting for the day of the Lord, right? Which means to haste. I got to pull it up here real quick. This is from Merriam-Webster Dictionary.com. Haste, rapidity of motion, swiftness, rash or headlong action. All right. It says undue eagerness to act. Okay. We're ready for the Lord to work his work. All right. So that's the spirit that you're supposed to be in, looking for and hasting unto the coming day of power, wherein the heavens being on fire should be dissolved and the elements should melt with fervent heat. Right. 1 Corinthians 7:29. 1 Corinthians 7:29, it says, but this I say, brethren, the time is short. It remaineth that both they that have wives be as though they had none, and they that weep as though they wept not, and they that rejoice as though they rejoice not, and they that buy as though they possess not, and they that use this world as not abusing it, for the fashion of this world passeth away. Okay? Verse 31 NLT. Those who use the things of the world should not become attached to them. Right? This is why we've been telling you, Jakes, to repent and detach yourself from the mindset of America, man. As you can see, this place has nothing to offer you. Okay? People can't live now. It's hard to live. They're barely making it. They're ready to give up. Okay? People are seeing that this system, this government is not for the people. All right? They're trying to get rid of you. All right? Everything that comes along with this shit, man. It says, those who use the things of the world should not become attached to them, for this world as we know it will soon pass away. It's all the spirit. See? Let's go back and read a little bit more. So now we understand why these Americans feel that way, right? Let's go down a little bit more here. So reading on, historically, apocalyptic thinking had a specific address. It lived in church basements and prophecy charts that looked like bad subway maps. In the vocabulary of premillennial dispensationalism, a word almost designed to keep outsiders out. The end of the world was a conviction reserved for a certain kind of Christian, right? Who awaited it with a feeling somewhere between dread and satisfaction, right? These were the kind of people for whom catastrophe would finally settle an argument that, it says these were the kind of people for whom a catastrophe would finally settle an argument they had been having for decades, right? Sounds like us, all right? Starting with our leadership, our apostles, going back and forth with you people for decades, all right? Trying to get you to see it, all right? And we at the end now. The Lord is no longer the Lord is no longer going to speak. The word is going out, all right? It ran its course, all right? Everyone else just changed the channel and went back to refinancing their mortgages. Yeah, and that's really the spirit of everybody, man. The majority of the people. All right. They just ignored the warnings, didn't take heed. It didn't matter. You know, as long as they were able to still continue to live their life how they felt, how they pleased. But now there's a sense of spiritual urgency because all the signs are clear. All right. The Lord is making it completely uncomfortable to live in America right now, man. No matter how much money you think you have, what type of job that you got. All right. Whatever the hell you think you got going on, man. Everybody's feeling the squeeze, man. All right. This war, people, thinking about, they raised the draft enlistment. So that's on the table, right? It's that perplexity. People are in fear, the uncertainty, It says, reading on, that separation is gone when the U.S. and Israel chose to attack Iran and kill the country's supreme leader. The phrase World War III began trending on phones and mechanics in Des Moines and software engineers in Austin. All right, everybody started getting the message, getting the word, the warning. The researchers found that more than 100 million Americans expect the world to end in their lifetime. This is not some vague anxiety, but a concrete belief that colors how these people think about climate change, nuclear war, economic collapse, and artificial intelligence, right? It says that is your neighbor, your barista, your Uber driver, and manager at work who just updated the remote work policy. Let's read a little bit more. Bear with me. All right, there we go. Dragging a little bit. Come on, man. Bear with me 1 second. Make sure we good. Okay. So reading on here, it says apocalyptic beliefs behaves like its own psychological operating system. It's just not pessimism or generalized anxiety with a religious coat of paint. People who believe humans will cause the end see global threats as more urgent and support far more extreme measures to avert them. Those who think God has circled a date on the divine calendar are much less inclined to risk radical action. Why swing the steering wheel if the crash was scheduled before you were born? All right, let's see if there's any more. All right, we'll get back to the scriptures in a second. Let's read this paragraph and then we'll get the scriptures here. It says all of this would be interesting, but academic if the geopolitical situation didn't look like a rejected script from a mid-budget Netflix thriller. The U.S.-Israel war with Iran is a structural stressor for a global economy already wheezing from too much debt, little trust, and interest rates that turn borrowing from a luxury into a life sentence. Shipping routes are disrupted, energy markets are jumpy, and investors are learning again that, quote, risk-free was mainly a branding exercise, man. It's over. All right, let's add some more here. Luke 21:36, watch ye therefore and pray always that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass. All right, all these things that the prophets of Yahweh Shemel Shai have been warning you day in and day out that's about to happen here, man. That you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that should come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. NLT, keep alert at all times and pray that you might be strong enough to escape these coming horrors and stand before the Son of Man. No joke, man. All right. It's about to get brutal, right? Let's see what else we got here before we move on to the next point. All right. Let's see. It says, we're not going to read all of this. I just want to see if we can take any of the heavy points from it. It says the new apocalyptic coalition is a strange one. It includes evangelical Christians waiting for the rapture, climate activists convinced we have blown past every tipping point, and AI researchers gaming out scenarios where the machine stops taking instructions. And we there. That's a real scenario. All right. The AI is taking over, making its own decisions. All right. It's going to be responsible for pushing the button, all of that. We are in that scenario now. All right. Last point, research on apocalyptic belief suggests that mood is more predictive than party affiliation or income and how people respond to big risk. Political identity explains surprisingly little. What matters is whether you think capable humans are still in control, how close you feel to the edge, and whether some part of you suspects the crash might actually be an improvement. All right. And you can read the rest of it on your own, man. All right. But the point again is that we are there. All right. The end of us all. Right. Let me let my computer catch up 1 second. All right. Bear with me. And we'll grab a couple more scriptures here. I just got to let my computer catch up. All right. Give me 1 second. All right. Because, hey, people are extremely worried, man. Okay. Mass fear, the anticipation of catastrophe. All right. This is why millions, tens of millions expect the end to happen in their lifetime, man. Right. Let me get that back in Luke 21 as well. I think that's 26. Right. Yep. Luke 21:36, men's heart failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken, right? People will be terrified at what they see coming upon the earth, for the powers in the heavens will be shaken, right? So people are terrified, man. All right, this war, the Strait of Hormuz, the invasion of Iran, all right, it's going to bring America to the end. It's all part of the plan. All right, zero back and zero hedge, global demand destruction, subsidies, empty gas stations, rationing, flight cancellations, export limits, price controls, right? Let's jump down a little bit. It says, we start as always with Asia, which has emerged as ground zero of the global energy crisis. As a reminder, last week, we first presented a map by J.P. Morgan's resident commodity expert who shows the shockwaves from the Iran war spreads across the world, hitting Asia first, then Africa and Europe, before settling on the U.S., but mostly California, all right? As you see on this map here, where the oil flows from the Persian Gulf in Southeast Asia, okay? Number one, panic buying prompts Prime Minister to reassure Australians over fuel supply, right? What else we got? Japan says oil reserves for domestic use amid Asia pleas for aid, all right? Nations all around are suffering. Those are those sorrows on every side, right? Right, we're not going to read all of that. I got a video to add to it. Right, so let's go ahead and play this video and make it all make sense, right? It says here, jet fuel spikes as airlines warn supplies could run dry within weeks, right? Matter of fact, let me read something real quick and we'll play it. 2nd Ezra 6:22. All right, 2nd Ezra 6:22, and it reads, it says, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. And the trumpet shall give a sound, which when every man heareth, they shall suddenly be afraid. And the trumpet going back to really the prophets, man. All right, that are giving the sound of what? Of war. And people are hearing it, man. Okay. At that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies, and the earth shall stand in fear, right? And the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein. The springs of the fountain shall stand still, and in 3 hours they should not run. Whosoever remaineth from all these things, whosoever remaineth from all these that I have told thee shall escape and see my salvation in the end of your world. And the only ones that are going to escape, is the elect. Okay? And the men that are received shall see it, who have not tasted death from their birth. And the hearts of the inhabitants shall be changed into another meaning, right? And then the rest reads on. So yeah, let's go pull this up. All right. Again, jet fuel spikes as airlines warn supplies could run dry within weeks. U.S. jet fuel prices jumped from $2.17 to $4.57 per gallon.
Taxes was so.
All right, let this pass. All right, it's getting crucial. That's a long ass ad, man. All right, we're almost there. A few more seconds. Here we go.
Steve, thank you. Dana. It's good to have Sandra here with me today. She understands the markets better than anyone, and they open about Romania there for us. Steve, thank you. Dana. It's good to have Sandra here with me today. She understands the markets better than anyone, and they opened about an hour ago, and it's quite a ways down, $662 at the moment. And oil and that this partly, as Sandra has explained, oil and gas prices are spiking in recent days, including today, as the conflict threatens shipping through the vital Strait of Hormuz. The waterway normally handles as much as a fourth of the world's seaborne oil trade, but traffic has plummeted since the attacks began, reportedly dropping by over 80% as of Monday. Bob McNally is founder and president of Rapidian Energy Group, a good friend of mine, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's just show everybody that gas prices going up today, $3.25. Yesterday was $3.19. A week ago, $2.98, and a month ago, $2.89. So not going in a direction that that any of us want. How do you see it playing out?
Hi, Dana. Well, I wish I had better news. You're right. You know, prices at the pump that you and I pay tend to follow what happens in the global crude oil market with a week or two lag. So even if things turn out well, I still think, unfortunately, those average pump prices are going to head up to around $3.40 a gallon. And that's if things go well. But as you mentioned in the open, if we don't see the Strait of Hormuz opening to commercial traffic, I'm afraid we're only at the beginning of the price increases, and they'll go much higher.
Okay, so Politico had this headline that caught my attention this morning. Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, sounding the alarm on gas prices. It's looking under every rock for ideas on improving energy prices, especially gasoline. And then you had
Yeah, there's no solution, man. All right, they don't have an answer. All right.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, she said this at the White House briefing yesterday.
The president said if necessary and when appropriate, the U.S. Navy will begin escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. I think it speaks to why this action was so necessary, that ultimately the energy industry is going to benefit from the president's actions with respect to Iran, because Iran will no longer be controlling the Strait of Hormuz and restricting the free flow of energy, which, as you all know, controls 20% of the world's global oil supply.
Would the U.S. Navy escorting the ships make a big difference?
Not unless they can suppress those vast Iranian capabilities to make ships, to threaten ships, I should say. Iran has thousands of small missiles, fast attack boats, drones, even nasty little mines, Dana. So escorting would help, insurance would help. But the prerequisite, the fundamental requirement is we have to degrade Iran's ability to threaten those ships in the first place. That's number one.
Okay, I'm going to go back to a topic I learned many, many years ago, going back to my Hill days in the mid-90s. That's just the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Right now, what are you hearing that might be blamed on President Trump and when it comes to the SPR?
Yeah, so there's a buzz starting up that they're going to blame, the Democrats might blame the president for not refilling the SPR, which, as you may know, is only at about 60% of its capacity. And that's a lot of chutzpah, Dana, because as we know, after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and despite not losing a drop of oil from Russia, so there was no emergency, no supply emergency, President Biden ordered a 180 million barrel drawdown. That, combined with congressional drawdowns, took us to about half the fill capacity of the SPR. You know, and when you and I were coming in with President Bush, President Clinton in the 2000 election, he also irresponsibly sold the SPR for political reasons. President Biden did it in 2022 and 2023, deeply irresponsible. And then to blame Congress or the president for not refilling it, correcting the problem that they made fast enough, I think is misleading, to say the best. So as a result, we go in with this less equipped to deal with it.
One last question. It's on China. Reuters saying that China urges refiners to suspend fuel exports amid Mideast conflict. I'm going to put up a map here that shows China's daily imports via the Strait of Hormuz. Can you just tell us about Asia's appetite for this oil?
Yeah, most of that oil and gas, LNG, so important, goes to Asia. China imports 40% of its oil from Hormuz. The United States, 7%, and we can get it from other places. It's a disaster, not only for China, for Japan, for Korea, for India, other countries. So we're seeing hoarding like we've seen in the past.
Yeah, so the effects of all of this, right, as he was just mentioning, this is what this article is going into, in a lack of better words, right? This is that global demand destruction. Subsidies, empty gas stations, rationing, flight cancellations, export limits, price controls, right? This is about to happen. This is the beginning of sorrows, man. All right. Planes running out of gas, they can't fly. All right. You got to wait 9 hours to get on the fucking plane. All right. America's going through pure hell right now, on top of already being broke. All right. And this is nasty work. Okay.
They're not allowing exports of refined products. They're going to be grabbing every barrel they can outside the Gulf because they're terrified. They're much more vulnerable than we are to a long-term supply interruption.
There you go. All right. Okay. Hold on, let me pause that real quick. All right, there you go. So yeah, there you have it. Okay. What more can we say? All right. Let's move on here. This is let's go to Second Esdras. This is the 5th chapter. All right, hold on 1 second. All right, Second Esdras 5 and 1. Nevertheless, as the coming tokens, as coming the tokens, behold, the days shall come. The day which dwell upon the earth shall be taken in a great number. It's going to be a lot of death soon to come. All right. And the way of truth shall be hidden, and the land shall be barren of faith. All right. But iniquity shall be increased above that which now thou seest, or that thou hast heard long ago. All right. Because this is the worst time on earth right now, man. Okay. The point, verse 3. In the land that thou seest to have root, shall thou see wasted suddenly, man. Okay, so this is the beginning of it. Everything that we just spoke about here. All right. All right, some Timcast. This could be the end of all of us. All right, let's get into it. So, hey, these headlines are crazy, man. All right, it's not looking good at all for Babylon America. All right, this could be the end of us all. All right.
You know, we've been harping on this for a very long time, and it's a sad state of affairs that Gen Z is largely giving up. We have this from sheknows.com. I don't see the point anymore. Inside Gen Z's financial behavior, they're not saving, they're not preparing, they're not dating. This is going to be the end of an empire. It's the end of an era. We have an entire generation that finds no light at the end of the tunnel. And there's interesting points being made. They're giving shelter to illegal immigrants, and I think all of it's on purpose. The theory for a long time is that the elites, fearing Thucydides' trap, decided to destroy the United States as the global hegemon in favor of China, and they are rapidly accelerating it so that the U.S. can't go to war. And they're pissed because Trump is still trying to. The liberal economic order is ending, and they're shifting power to a new point in the world, the third way, communist China, where they will maintain their power over everybody and nothing will stop them. And who is them? It's the liberal economic order. Powerful elites from Western intelligence and government that have been running the system since after World War II.
Yeah, this is that's his enterprise. Was it Job? All right. Job chapter 5. Job chapter 5 and 12. He disappointed the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprises. Enterprise is what? The new global world order. All right. This beast system that he's talking about, man. This is what they plan to usher in. Right? He frustrates NLT. He frustrates the plans of schemers so the work of their hands will not succeed, man. All right. So this plan of world domination through this beast system is not going to succeed. All right. But we are in the transition of them pushing this thing in. All right.
The purpose was to prevent World War III. And now the United States is being burned down, and we have a generation that is listless, doesn't care. Now, I want to read for you this story, Parenting and Parenting News. They don't care. Bad financial behavior. But I actually have this, a 4chan post that I think is actually pretty dang interesting to read for you first. It was posted just yesterday. It reads, in 2019, a burger and fries meal at Red Robin cost $8.99. Today, the same burger costs $14.99. The price of the burger in the span of 7 years has increased 66%. My salary hasn't effing increased 66%, and the price of everything else has gone up too. Something has to give. Let's see. Does the average person want to pay the rent, mortgage, utility bills, or do they want to go spend all of their money eating mediocre food at a premium price? Every effing thing I see written on this topic, especially from the perspective of boomers or Gen X, affects astonishment and confusion. Gee whiz, why oh why? Is it anybody paying $15 for some ish burger? Another $5 for a soft drink. And then since for some reason tipping culture has progressed from what used to be roughly 10% for just okay service, 15% for solid service, 18% on an occasion for exceptional service, to a baseline 20% for everything, no matter how bad your experience was. Then in my county, which has in my lifetime transitioned from a deeply red Republican area to a deeply blue lunatic communist Democrat-ish hole, they passed an effing 10% tax on food at restaurants last year. So on your $20 mediocre burger and fries with a drink, you're paying a $2 tax. Then the $21.98, you're expected to leave a $5 tip, or they'll spit in your food next time. One person can go out to eat for about $27. Oh, golly gee whiz. What's wrong with this younger generation? They just don't feel like going out to eat anymore. Indeed, my friends. And that's not just about going out to eat. It is about the end of this economic system. Young people can't afford to go and have dinner. They can't go out. What are they supposed to do?
Yeah. People are ready to crash the fuck out. You know, tell them why you mad, Esau, you know. Hey, these people, hey, it's over. There's no point of living. That's the mindset here. All right. Nobody's getting married. Nobody's dating, as he was talking about. Can't afford to go out and eat and have a good time. All right. We told you the Most High was going to take away all the security, all the comfort. All right. And it had to get to that point for people to finally open their goddamn eyes. Right? It's too late though. Okay. Let me get this. 2 Timothy. All right. 2 Timothy chapter 3. Perilous times shall come. All right. This is where we at, right? Difficult times will come. This is what he's talking about. And we live in some difficult ass times. Shit is difficult as hell. You know, for the average American right now, you know. 2 Timothy 3:1. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men should be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy. All right. And in this generation we live in is the worst, man. Social media. All right. Technology, the spirit to go viral and clout, and, you know, just the pride and arrogancy of the people, you know. Is at an all-time high. Okay, the blasphemy against the Most High, the mockery, the incredulity that we see, you know, is at its worst. Verse 3: without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. Right, because wickedness is what's praised in the society. You know, what's exalted. All right, being a damn bug out, being a damn complete loser, all right, is what's hell, is what's the standard here, you know. All right, being a complete degenerate, right? Traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of the Most High, right? This is a carnal-based society, all right, based on how you feel and what you think, and, you know, your feelings and shit like that. Basically the flesh. traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. Yeah, a bunch of frauds. You know, people who claim that they love God, they love the Bible, but when the scriptures speak, right, that goes out the window. All right, people say they know the Lord and all of that, right? And the Lord is allowing that stuff to really be manifested these times, man. These people are a bunch of frauds, man. Right? But anyway, let's go back to what we were checking out here.
They're not buying a $500,000 house. They're not spending $5,000 on rent in New York City. We're cooked.
Super cooked, right? The water. Isaiah, GMS, pray always, hope for elect, shalom out. Isaiah 24:11, KJV, there is a crying for wine in the streets. All joy is darkened. The mirth of the land is gone. This is what he's talking about here, man. All right? No more mirth. There's nothing to be happy about, man. Right? The pride of life, you know, all of that shit is over with. The American dream, going to college to get that immaculate career. It's all bullshit, man. All right? People realize they've been lied to. All right?
If we do not have kids, we do not continue to exist. From She Knows. I am a zillennial, meaning I sit squarely between the millennial and Gen Z generations. It also means I get to self-identify only with the best parts of both generations. My field research included interrogating my younger friends, scrolling TikTok, going on a handful of dates with 24-year-old bartender and Googling, what does unk mean? Ha, 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 we get it. The question is, let me read. She says, I kid, but as someone who writes extensively about how our economy and culture shape how we think and handle money, the topic of Gen Z comes up again. Gen Z is supposed to be the most connected, educated, and empowered generation in history. They have access to more information, more tools, more opportunities than any generation before them. And yet they're detaching from work, from traditional career paths, from the markers of adulthood that previous generations took for granted. They're living at home longer, delaying marriage and homeownership, and increasingly opting out of the systems that were supposed to carry them into stable middle-class lives. The question is this rational adaptation to our current or self-destructive nihilism? It's both. The issue is about how an entire generation looked at the American dream, ran the numbers, and decided it was a scam. And what happens when economic reality...
See, we told you. That's the spirit. All right? And these younger generation kids, they see it's all a fucking scam. America, everything, man. Everything that America has to offer. It's all bullshit. All right? Let me get something real quick. Because I didn't even know he was going to say that. That's the spirit. Right? Let's go to Sirach. The scripture says dreams have deceived many, right? And that American dream is exactly just that, all right? Sirach 34 or Ecclesiastes chapter 34 and verse 7. And it reads, for dreams have deceived many, and they that have failed that put their trust in them, right? So imagine all the people who trusted in the American dream. All right. If I just go to college and get an education and my life will be perfect, you know, I'll get that dream job. You know, I'll get that income where I'm able to sustain a family and, you know, invest in my 401k and, you know, we'll live happily ever after. All right. People are not fucking thinking that. Okay. People are crushed. Hey, even people that's supposed to be retired are still working. You know, nigga 85 years old, a cashier at Walmart. All right. Damn near 90, checking receipts before you walk out the damn grocery store. All right. Because he can't retire because his Social Security won't allow him to live off that. You know, like it's crazy out here, man. All right. You 300K in debt, 400K in debt. All right. Because you wanted to get that PhD. All right. That master's degree just to be a waiter at damn Ruby Tuesdays. All right. People are cooked, man. For the dreams have deceived many. For dreams have deceived many, and they have failed that put their trust in them. See? American dream is done.
Cultural forces and technology collide to reshape how young people think about money, work, and success. The economic reality: each generation tends to form its own core money beliefs during young adulthood, the period when people first encounter work, income, debt, financial independence. The economic climate Gen Z is entering is objectively different. Let me grab that. And harder than previous generations faced. The pathway that worked for boomers and many others, college, entry-level job, climb the ladder, buy a house, has fundamentally broken down. There are fewer entry-level job postings.
Yeah, it's all broken down. I want to just want to address something real quick. Hey, because what you said is the curses, bro. All right. This guy right here, Justin Nichols 9910. It's always been hard for most of us. Broken heritage, broken promises, broken fairness, broken families, broken people, and being the tail financially, regardless of the industry. Exactly, and that's the curses right there, right? That's exactly what it is, bro. Just wanted to address that real quick. Deuteronomy 28. Let me get that real quick, and then we'll go back to the video. But Dave, that's the plight of our people, the so-called Negro, Latino, Native American, Hispanic. That's the pit that we're in America. All right, let me get that. Deuteronomy 28. Let's go to verse 46. All right, because that's a good point. Deuteronomy 28, Deuteronomy 28 and verse 46. Let me get there. Yep. We'll start at 43. All right. Deuteronomy 28, 43. All right. Just addressing that comment there. All right. Deuteronomy 28, verse 43. And it reads, it says, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, going into what? The heathen nations. Okay. It says they should get up above thee very high, and thou should come down very low. All right. Because these heathen, they can come over here and get loans. They can set up shop in your neighborhood, and they'll be over Jake, man. And thou should come down very low. Jake would be at the bottom, like you were saying, the bottom of everything, the bottom of the barrel. He should lend to thee, and thou should not lend to him, right? Jay got to go to Esau and to get the loans, right? With the high interest rates, he should lend to thee, and thou should lend to, and thou should not lend to him. Jake don't own no banks, ain't no black banks, He should be the head, and thou should be the tail, like he was saying, right? Being the tail financially, regardless of the industry. That's the spirit. Verse 45, Deuteronomy 28 and 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee till thou beest destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord, Yahweh Shemer Washah, thy power, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. So this is what happened to us because we disobeyed the Lord. Okay. He put these curses upon us. We would be at the bottom. We would have our children taken from us. We would go into slavery. All right. We would be the tail, not the head. All right. We would be the bottom, the scum of society, broken families, right? Single parent homes, the father either in jail, locked up, dead. You see, that's all the curses, bro. And they should be a sign, verse 46. And they should be a sign upon thee. And they should be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder upon thy seed forever. See, these horrors, right? Verse 46 NLT to the right. These horrors will serve as a sign and warning among you and your descendants forever. See that? Tell me where this applies to the so-called JOO. All right, break that down. Show us where he's going through any of this shit. Right? But yeah, I just wanted to address that, man. Shalom. Anyway, let's go back.
And those that exist often require 3 to 5 years of experience. That's not entry level. New college graduates have an unemployment rate of 9.3%. The unemployment rate for young workers is age 22 to 27 is 7.4%, almost double the overall rate. AI is at least partly or maybe mostly to blame. Many tasks routinely given to entry-level workers are now being outsourced to computers. AI has also made the job application process miserable. Applicants use AI to write and submit hundreds of job applications, which are read by another AI model and often rejected. If you do find a job, you may feel more unmotivated and stuck. You may be anxious about looming layoffs, especially when you see headlines that say AI could replace half of all white-collar jobs. All of this explains why 46% of Gen Z participates in the gig economy, which often comes with no benefits, no predictability, and no long-term security. Look at this. The percent of people aged 25 to 34 living at their parents' house. Women don't have to, men do. Oh boy, let's bring it in, guys. Why do more men live at home? Because young women can just bang older guys. Dude, I'm over it, to be completely honest. The reality is for Gen Z men especially, y'all are cooked and they are checking out. Listen, it's only about 7%, 7.4%. But the reality is young women are considered valuable by society just for being women. And they can complain about it all day and night, but it's true. And it's because women have babies. Guys have to contribute something, and it's becoming increasingly harder. The competition is fierce, and young men are now competing because of the internet with older men. So where does this all end up, my friends? Young guys, unfortunately for them, they are going to universities, they're going to jobs, but younger women are dating above them. It used to be, I've explained this quite a bit. If you were a 20-year-old guy, you're at college, the women around you were the same age. There's no internet, so you were the only guys they knew. You were part of their social circle. Here's the story. 20-year-old guy in college goes on Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, whatever it is you kids are using these days, and he swipes. And then he gets a swipe back. Maybe he's an attractive young guy. Maybe he's tall. And she says, hey, what's going on? Let's hang out, right? And so he goes, hey, why don't you come over and hang out at my dorm? We are going to watch movies, order some food. We're all going to hang out. Maybe we'll go out to a bar or something. She's like, that sounds cool. Let me check, see what I'm doing tonight and see if I'm available. On her app, she's 20. There's a 27-year-old guy. He makes $50,000 a year. He's not the richest guy in the world, but he's got his own place. And he says, hey, why don't you come hang out at my place? I got an apartment on the north side near the lake. We'll go grab dinner and then we'll watch a movie. And she thinks to herself, he'll pick me up in his car, buy me dinner, take me to the lake. It's Chicago, so that's why I say by the lake. And she's like, okay. She messages back college guy and says, hey, sorry, I've got plans tonight, but let's rain check. Nothing malicious. That young guy cannot compete with the older guy. So what happens? Well, this young girl can't find a job, so she moves in with the 27-year-old boyfriend. The 20-year-old guy, he graduates, can't find a job, so he moves back home with his parents. There's no work for college grads, so everything is just miserable for him. Young guys are checking out. And the funny thing is, this can't persist. That young guy is not going to succeed, so what's going to happen? Oh, man, what happens when he's 30? It's going to keep getting older and older and older. Fertility will continue to drop. Now, maybe something breaks. Technology can change things. So what do I know? Maybe things will be different, right? For now, what I can tell y'all is this. Gen Z is cooked, and Donald Trump is not talking about how he's going to help this younger generation. Donald Trump is not talking about how he's going to help men, and his polls are sinking because of it.
Yeah. So it's over. We ain't got to rush this whole thing, but that's pretty much the point, man. All right, it's all over, man. This could be the end for all of us. All right. So again, the writing is there on the wall. That's pretty much the point. We'll wrap this up. Didn't want this to be too long. Before we close it out, my last article here was I talked about a week or two ago. We're talking about the end of the internet blackouts. All right. It says Putin's internet blackout, a chaotic drive to cut off Russians from the world. Right. And here's another headline from NBC News. It says Putin takes Russia off the grid. There are growing signs of discontent. All right. So all these things, dealing with the internet and blackouts and power grid failures, energy crisis. All right. So what else can we say, man? All right. This is it. This is the end. All right. The scripture said that the day of doom shall be the end of this time, you know. So that's pretty much it, man. So hey, pray that this live lesson was edifying to the hopeful elect. All right, one day closer. So all hell breaking loose and this shit hitting the fan, man. All right, tens of millions of Americans now believe the end is near. All right, the end of all things is at hand. Shalom.